Hey everybody, my name is Claire. I'm from Alaska, but I've been living in Spain for the past 4 years. I just started this YouTube channel a few months back. I do videos mostly in Spanish, traveling a bit around Spain, interviewing people, and today I kind of wanted to do a Spanish resource dump type of video. In the first part of the video, I'll talk about my tips and my experience, I guess, learning Spanish, and then in the second part of the video, I'm just gonna dump all of my favorite YouTubers, podcast, books, and whatnot. So I'll put timestamps because I think it's gonna be kind of a long video. So my first tip is just to immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. So this could be music, videos, watching the news, watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading, writing, taking notes in Spanish, changing your computer and phone settings to Spanish. Basically any possible thing that you can do to immerse yourself in Spanish, do it. And be creative. If you like to do yoga on YouTube, put a yoga course on in Spanish. So my next tip is listen and repeat. This is a really great way to improve your pronunciation and your intonation. I am always in the gym or walking around listening to a podcast and just speaking to myself because I'm literally just repeating out loud exactly what I'm hearing in the podcast. And you can do this with series, you can do this with YouTube videos, you can do it really with anything. Just for an example, with a 15-minute podcast, I'll take 45 minutes just to listen to the podcast because I'm pausing it, repeating, replaying. Don't be afraid to listen back to it 4 or 5 times until you feel like you really just aced the pronunciation. Okay, so my next tip is to set a goal and to keep track of what you're doing or keep track of your progress. A goal could be, I'm gonna do 1 page a day in my grammar book, or I'm going to read 10 pages a week. Another helpful thing is to keep a notebook or keep a spreadsheet or keep something where you can write down your goals and you can just check them off. Okay, so my next tip is to record yourself speaking Spanish, and you can either do this with your camera or with a voice note or whatever you want, but make sure that you listen to it afterwards so you can point out your mistakes and that you're actually learning from it. I mean, the speaking practice of course is great, but I think it's almost even more valuable to listen back on it afterwards. The other thing that you can do is read an article and record yourself reading that article that's written by a native Spanish speaker and read it in your best news presenter voice. And then when you're on a walk or you're doing something where you can really concentrate on what you're listening to, listen back on that recording of you speaking perfect Spanish. I also do this thing with my textbook where I'll highlight every single sentence that I have even the slightest doubt about, and then I'll rewrite all of those sentences, and then I'll record myself reading those sentences one by one out loud. So then later I can listen to myself reading those sentences. I really like this method because you read it, you write it, you speak it, and then you listen to it. You're literally hitting all of the senses just from that one lesson. So yeah, when I use the grammar book, I literally take probably 40 minutes to an hour to do 1 page because I'm just I need to absorb this information. So my next step is to start every single day with Spanish. That could be watching a 10-minute news segment on YouTube in Spanish, or waking up and listening to a podcast in Spanish while you cook breakfast, or writing in Spanish. Lately I've been doing this thing where I've been writing positive affirmations. I honestly just copy them off of random blogs. Okay, so my next tip is to speak as much as possible. During my first few years in Spain, I was doing so many language exchanges, and I really feel like that was so essential for me to feel confident in Spanish. I mean, I didn't really feel confident, but I felt comfortable enough to talk with people because I think that we're so scared to speak in a language that's not our native language, and that fear really holds us back. So by doing these language exchanges, which were one-on-one, by the way, I didn't do the group ones because I don't really feel like they're that helpful personally, but by doing these one-on-one language exchanges, it forced me to really put my best effort in. I use the website openlanguageexchange.com to meet people, and the website's definitely very outdated, but it works. My next tip is to read, and you can read articles, you can read the news, you can read books. I personally recommend that you read books and you read something really fun, something that's really interesting to you, and you just get immersed in the book, get lost in the book. And then every time that you do read, try and read at least 1 or 2 pages out loud. Try not to get hung up on the vocabulary that you don't know, because then you'll just be stopping all the time. Only look up the words that you feel are really necessary, and then write them down, and try and write them with the Spanish definition instead of the English translation. My next step is to follow some sort of guide, or follow a grammar book, or take online classes. I think this is really helpful because Sometimes the hardest part about language learning is not really knowing what to study, but if you have a book laid out for you, or you have like a website that you like, or you're taking classes that have a really good structure, then you know exactly what to study and you can find supplemental material based on what you're studying, like from that book or from those courses. One website I really like for like self-study is called studyspanish.com. They have all of these units and then they have the sub-units, and they basically just have everything super clearly laid out for you so you know exactly what to study. And then you can also take little quizzes on the website, which is nice. But if you're looking for something a little more structured than that, then I would recommend that you take classes. I personally like taking classes online better because I just find it way more convenient. And one way that you can do that is through LINGODA, which is an online language school, and they just so happen to sponsor this video, so thank you, LINGODA. LINGODA is really cool because they have all of the course material like super clearly laid out for you, and you can study everything that you want before the class. They have like bonus supplemental homework that you can do. It's just really convenient because they have like tons of teachers, they have classes 24/7, and then all of their content is like super carefully curated, so you can study the topic that you want to study, or you can skip over it, or you can study it and take the class on it and then move to the next one, or you can take the same class 3 times if you really are having trouble with something. So I just feel like it leaves room for like a lot of flexibility, which is cool. And they also have a cap of 5 students per group lesson, which I think is amazing because in the past I've been kind of turned off by group lessons. There were always so many people in the class and I never really got like speaking practice, but with LINGODA it's nice, they really prioritize the speaking aspect. Also, if you sign up for LINGODA Sprint Language Challenge, you can either get 50% or 100% of all of your money back if you complete all of the lessons. So you can either take 30 lessons per month for 2 months and get all of your money back for attending every single class, or you can take 15 lessons per month for 2 months and you will get 50% of your money back. So I will put the link in the description below if you're interested in finding out more, and then you can also use my code ClaireWinter for $25 off if you sign up for the LINGODA Sprint Challenge. So if you're just looking for like a really quick podcast to listen to the news, you can listen to CNN Cinco Cosas or Noticias de la Mañana de Telemundo. These are both like 3 to 4 to 5 minute podcasts, and they just like really quickly bring you up to speed with the news. You can listen to El Hilo, which is actually probably my favorite podcast ever. The people who run it are amazing storytellers, and they cover events from all over the world, but especially events from Latin America, which is cool. And they have a lot of people speaking with different accents. And then the other one that I really like is called Hoy en el País. I also really like the podcast Nómadas, which is like a travel podcast. The guy is from Spain, but he travels all over the world. And then we have Se Regalan Dudas, which is a podcast run by 2 Mexican women. And I really like this podcast also because they take calls from people and then they talk about like a wide array of topics. Then we have Entiende tu Mente, which is all like psychology, and they cover like a wide range of topics. Then we have Voces de Fuera. This is a podcast run by my friend. He's Mexican and he speaks super clearly. So if you're, I don't know, looking for a podcast where you can really understand everything, I definitely recommend this. The next one is Judith Tira. She is from Spain and I actually found her on YouTube. So she also has a YouTube channel. And I just think she's like a really great storyteller and just, she's good vibes. The last one I want to recommend is called Keep It Cutre. This podcast is actually hilarious. It's run by like 2 younger Spanish girls and they just like talk shit. I do have 2 playlists that I'll put in the link of this video below. The playlist that I updated recently is called Bonica, and I put like a wide range of genres on there, so you can just like skip through that and maybe find some artists or some songs that you like, and then from there go find more Spanish music. I think music is a great way to learn languages, especially if you want to like write out the song and translate it. That's like really great way to learn new vocabulary. Sometimes, you know, the grammar can be a little bit off, but I would recommend like Guitarra de la Fuente, Enrique Iglesias, and Shakira if you want to translate songs, because I feel like their lyrics are like pretty grammatically correct, I guess. The 3 dictionaries that I use are Spanish Dic, Word Reference, and Reverso. So Spanish Dictionary is nice because you can like look up the word and then you can save it, and you can save it to a list, or you can just save it to like a master list and then you can quiz yourself on it. So that's like automatically like a Quizlet and like dictionary in one. But I don't know why I tend to use Word Reference more than Spanish Dictionary. I just feel like Word Reference has a more, like a bigger variety of translations. And I usually just use Reverso when I'm looking up expressions or when I want to see a word in context. watch a big range of YouTube videos, but I will just quickly mention some channels that I like. So one show that I like on the Telemadrid channel on YouTube is called Eso No Se Pregunta. Basically, they're like all about like breaking harmful stereotypes, and like they give people an opportunity to talk about things that may be stigmatized in society. Another channel that I really like is Vogue Spain and Vogue Mexico y Latinoamérica, and I love the What's in My Bag in Spanish. The next YouTuber is Andy GM in Berlin. So this is actually a Spanish girl that lives in Germany, and I just like her videos. I like her personality. She's just like fun and has good energy. Another YouTuber that I really like is Jordi Wu. I really like his videos because they're all about mindset, being positive, working through your anxiety, reaching your goals. And then two other shows that are really fun. You can just like search them on YouTube: Andaluces por el Mundo and then Madrileños por el Mundo. If you're like learning about India, but you're learning about India in Spanish. And then three channels that I really like that are focused on teaching and learning Spanish are Spanish After Hours, Español con Juan, and Spanish with Vicente. All three of these YouTubers just have a lot of charisma and they explain things really well, I would say. And then Spanish with Vicente has a lot of videos about the DELE, so I actually watched like so many of his videos when I was studying for the DELE exam. Also, a quick tip, read the comments on YouTube videos and on Instagram posts. People are just like very natural, and you can see like, you know, how people write, what slang they use, etc. And then there's always like people fighting in the comments. The shows and movies, I'm not even gonna get into it. I'm just gonna put this like huge list here. You can take a screenshot where the star emoji is, or shows and movies that I actually really did enjoy. If I had to recommend a top three, I would recommend the show Patria, the show Arde Madrid, and then the movie Adu. One thing that I will say about shows and movies is find a reality TV show that you like, and even if you don't, or a talk show even, like even if you don't understand everything, I think it's like great because people are talking naturally, where in like movies, everything is so scripted. Okay, so I'm sure there's like a million good textbooks out there. I will just share really quickly the ones that I used. I found this one at Casa de Papel. This is like B1, B2. I did this during the pandemic when I couldn't leave my house. And then I got the next one, the C1, C2. And I was saying earlier, like it takes me like 1 hour to complete one of these pages because I just like really try and let it soak in. Here you can see how it is. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some books that I really liked that I read in Spanish. And the first three that I'm going to recommend are like B1, B2 level, I would say, or maybe just like a little bit easier, and then the other three are a little bit more advanced. So the first one that I think you could read with a lower level, I guess, is Ser Mujer Negra en España. I really like this book because I feel like it's important that I try to understand like how the racism is in Spain, and she basically gives a lot of like examples of like racist things in Spain, and she talks about her own experience growing up as a Black woman, and then she puts like a lot of resources at the bottom of the page so you can learn more, which I think is super cool. So the next book that I really like is called Cuando Seas Mayor. It's about a family from Romania that immigrates to Spain, and it basically just like talks about a lot of like the struggles that immigrants face, both in, you know, the country that they came from and in their new country. The next book that I really like is called Arroz Tres Delicias. This book, you can see it's like a pretty easy read. It's pretty short. I actually saw him in concert here in Spain, here in Madrid at Ocho y Media, and I was like, wow, he seems so cool. And I followed him on Instagram, and then I don't really know how I think I just found his book randomly. The book is all about him navigating his feelings and his experiences growing up in Spain as a queer Taiwanese Spaniard. The next book that I'm going to recommend is called La Luz que no puedes ver. This was an amazing book. It took place in World War II, and it had two different characters, and basically each chapter it switched the perspective of the character. And even though it's like super fat, this was like a 700-page book or something. I was really proud of myself when I finished it. It's tiny, tiny text. But the chapters are really short, so you can see like here the chapter is like literally 2 pages, right? So this was actually a really, really fast read, even though it was such a long book, because I feel like when the chapters are shorter, you just like fly through them. The next book is called Bajo Cielos Rojos. This is a really cool book based on a true story. Well, Caroline Kahn, she talks about her life, her mother's life, and her grandmother's life growing up in China, and kind of how different, like the differences and similarities between their lives. This was a really, really interesting book, and I feel like I learned so much about China because I don't really know that much about China, so definitely recommend this one. And then the last book is Patria. Okay, so I watched this on HBO and then I read the book, and like I recommend that if you want to read this book, which you should because it's amazing, watch the series first because this book is so confusing at times. It changes time in history, it changes perspective, and then it even changes like tense. It's really kind of confusing to explain. I just think that I would have been kind of confused reading this book without seeing the series first, but this book is amazing and I definitely recommend it. And then my last recommendation, if you like poetry, I really like David Galan. He has Instagram that you can follow and you can just like see a lot of his poetry there, but this was a really cute book. All right, finally we're coming to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like give a like or a comment just so I know if this content is useful or not. Maybe like nobody is even gonna watch this video, no idea. But yeah, and let me know like if you have any book recommendations.